You know what can be an incredibly discouraging way to achieve goals, build habits, and achieve your dreams? Taking one little step at a time and not seeing any results and feeling like you're making no progress. There is a way of dealing with that, and in this video, I'll share how. Hey, this is Avish Parashar, and I am a professional speaker, and I use my 30-plus year background performing, studying, and teaching improv comedy to work with individuals and organizations and teams and companies on how they can use ideas from the world of improv to think quickly, be more creative, and most specifically, how to respond to change, how to embrace it, how to lead it, and how to create it. And I talk about how they can create it in their entire organization, in their teams, and even in themselves. And one thing I talk about is when we're trying to make a transformation, whether in an organization or in ourselves, how it's important and useful to think in terms of small steps. Because when we think way too big, or we try to plan too far out ahead, it's paralyzing, it's overwhelming, and we never get started. So just by focusing on the one next step you're going to take, you can get very far, very fast. My overall theme is I talk about the idea of saying yes and instead of yes but. It's a foundational idea to the world of improv. And in this small step sense, I say just make one small yes and. You don't need to say yes and transform your life. Just one little yes and at a time in a few weeks, in a month, in a year can be absolutely transformative. Now, I stand by this, and I think it's an incredibly powerful way to get moving, to allow you to adjust on the fly as you go, and it prevents you from getting overwhelmed or procrastinating. But it can be discouraging because when you are taking very small steps, even if you are on a plan, on a path, and doing the right thing, you will often not see or feel like you are making any progress because you will see no tangible results. A lot of times, small steps have no tangible outcomes. For example, I'm not a fitness expert, but a lot of times when you first start working out, you don't see results right away. Or maybe you'll get those first 2 weeks results where things change, and then everything slows down, and you have to just kind of keep working on faith that you're doing the right thing and it's going to pay off. But it gets discouraging because by taking little steps, you're not getting that tangible thing. Whereas if you went whole hog and jumped in and worked out 2 hours a day and completely transformed your diet, you see very fast results. Of course, it might not be healthy, might not be sustainable. Similarly, I do a lot of writing. I'm doing creative writing. Right now is November, National Novel Writing Month for those who know, so I'm working on a novel. And yeah, I'm getting a lot of words done, but slow and steady is the way to make the progress. But it can be very discouraging where you are doing slow and steady process and you're seeing the word count go up slowly, but you don't feel like you're making any results because no matter how many small steps you take, you still feel like you're so far away from finishing. And this is where we get into emotion versus logic. Because clearly, logically, we know that, hey, if I go to the gym 3 days a week, or if I go for a walk every day, I may not see an immediate result, but I know it's going to pay off over time. Similarly, logically, even just writing 200 words a day, you know eventually you'll have a completed novel, but emotionally it doesn't feel that way. So I want to share with you a story / more of a thought experiment that maybe will help you, something you can keep in mind when you start to feel discouraged if you're trying to take small steps and feeling down like, I'm never going to get there, or I'm making no progress. So let me ask you a question. If I give you 1 penny, are you rich? No, of course not. All right, I've given you a penny. What if I give you a 2nd penny? Are you now rich? No. What about a 3rd? A 4th? A 5th? Of course not, right? Because no matter how many pennies you have, if you're not rich, adding 1 more penny to it is not going to make you rich. This is something called the sorites paradox. I might be mispronouncing that. Or also known as the paradox of the heap. There was a Greek, I believe, philosopher who came up with this named Sorites. He did it with grains of sand or grains of rice. I'm doing it with pennies. But the basic gist of it is this. If you have a number of grains of sand that are not a heap, you look at that and say that's not a heap. Or if you have a number of pennies in your possession and you're like, you know what? These pennies do not make me rich. Adding 1 single penny will not suddenly make you transform from not rich to rich. And adding 1 grain of sand or 1 grain of rice, whatever, is not going to take something that was not a heap and now make it a heap. Put simply, there's never a situation where adding 1 penny will have you transform from not rich to rich. The paradox comes in because at some point, if I continuously give you pennies, at some point you will say, I'm rich. Whatever that number is for you, maybe it's 100 million pennies, which would be $1 million, or a billion pennies would be $100 million, or I guess a billion, yeah, it would be $10 million, whatever. You do the math. But the basic gist of it is that at some point you will get enough pennies to be like, oh, now I'm rich. And that's the paradox. There's no number of pennies where adding one single penny will change you from not rich to rich. However, if I continuously give you pennies, at some point you will have transformed from not rich to rich. It's a real interesting thought experiment, and you think about it too hard, it can hurt your brain, so be careful. Now, in my experience, habits, progress, success, transformation, dream achievement, whatever, all work the same way, especially when we think in terms of taking these small, steady steps that don't give us tangible outcomes we can see and feel right away. So when you take these small steps, you might feel at times like, I'm not making any progress. This is useless. I'll never get there. You just remind yourself of the sorites paradox, the paradox of the heap, the pennies making you rich or not. No one individual action is going to suddenly take you from being unsuccessful to being successful, right? No one action is going to take you from being unhealthy to healthy, or from starting a business to having the business of your dreams, or from having a blank page to having a completed novel. But eventually, by taking these consistent small steps over and over and over again, you will eventually one day look up and be like, whoa, everything has changed. So when you feel discouraged and you're like, I'm not making any progress and this is never going to work, ask yourself, am I really making no progress, or am I still just adding pennies to my pile? Maybe right now that penny isn't rich. Maybe that grain of sand is not a heap, but I'm just adding more and more to it. I'm adding more and more to it, and eventually I'm going to get there. Now, yes, you need to constantly assess and adjust, because it is possible that you're taking the wrong action. So you need to have that honest conversation with yourself. But so often we give up on things, not because we're on the wrong path or we're not actually going to get there, but because it feels that way, because we can't quite see the heap yet. So keep taking those small steps. As I say towards the end of almost all of my keynotes, keep taking those small little yes ands, right? One little yes and out of your comfort zone, and then see what happens. And then the next day, say the next little yes and. Keep moving towards the direction of your goal, towards the direction of your dreams, towards the direction of that transformation you want for yourself or your team or your organization. And I promise, if you keep doing that consistently, just little yes ands, little steps at a time, you will look up one point and be like, whoa, everything has changed. I hope you found that helpful. If so, be sure to give me a like and a subscribe. If you want more information, you can check out my website. And if you want help with your organization, if you want your team to start taking these small steps, to start embracing change and moving in the right direction, I would love to come in and work with them. Or if you want your leaders to more effectively lead your people through change, that is also something I speak on and do. So be sure to contact me. I would love to chat.